In the biblical context, the term Ophanim refers to a specific class of celestial beings described in the book of Ezekiel. Sometimes translated as wheels, the Ophanim are depicted vividly in Ezekiel 1:15-18 as part of the prophet's vision of the divine chariot. These entities are described as having a complex design, appearing as interlocking wheels within wheels, and are covered with eyes all around. This description sets them apart from other angelic beings in the biblical narrative, emphasizing their unique role in the celestial hierarchy. The significance of understanding Ophanim lies in their association with divine mobility and function within the vision. They symbolize God's omnipresence and omnipotence, capable of moving in any direction without turning, thus representing the notion that the divine presence is both dynamic and infinite. This imagery underscores the transcendence and mystery of divine power, making the Ophanim crucial to the interpretation of prophetic visions and apocalyptic literature. In terms of real-world applications, the imagery of the Ophanim can be found influencing both religious art and literature. For instance, the complexity and majesty of these beings have inspired numerous artists throughout history, seen in elaborate stained glass windows, paintings and sculptures in places of worship, aiming to convey the otherworldly nature of divine encounters. Additionally, in theological discourse, the Ophanim challenge scholars to explore deeper meanings of divine perception and movement, fostering discussions that are central to understanding biblical metaphors of divine interaction with the world. Opinions supporting the significance of the Ophanim often focus on how they contribute to a richer, more intricate portrayal of divine reality. Theologians like St. Thomas Aquinas have examined them to illustrate the multifaceted nature of divine interaction, reinforcing the notion that biblical visions are profound, symbolic experiences rather than mere literal events. However, interpretations of the Ophanim are not without controversy. Some scholars argue that such visions are symbolic myths rather than historical accounts, questioning whether these descriptions were ever intended to be factual. Furthermore, the peculiar and surreal depiction of the Ophanim raises debates about the nature of divine revelation and its purpose. The exploration of Ophanim deeply influences the broader topic of understanding celestial hierarchies and the nature of angelic beings in biblical tradition. By examining these entities, we gain a better grasp of how ancient texts communicate divine mysteries and how such symbolism is woven into the fabric of religious teachings, shaping perceptions of spirituality and the divine throughout history. In Ezekiel's vision, as detailed in the biblical text of Ezekiel 1:15-18, the Ophanim are described as mysterious, otherworldly entities often referred to as the wheels of God's celestial chariot. These remarkable wheels possess an extraordinary design. They are composed of multiple intersecting circles covered with eyes, which allow them to move in any direction without turning. The description conveys a sense of divine purpose and intelligence, symbolizing the omnipresence and omniscience of God. In essence, the Ophanim serve as a visual representation of God's ability to see all things and move throughout creation effortlessly, reinforcing their status as the embodiment of divine mobility and wisdom. The significance of this imagery lies in its theological implications. The Ophanim highlight God's supreme sovereignty and omnipresence, themes central to the understanding of divine nature in many Judeo-Christian contexts. They also exemplify the intricate and awe-inspiring nature of heavenly creatures, providing insight into the complex hierarchy of angels and their roles in the celestial realm. This depiction serves to inspire reverence and contemplation about the mysteries of the divine. Two specific examples illustrate the relevance of the Ophanim imagery. First, in the realm of religious art, Ezekiel's vision has inspired numerous artists throughout history to create visual interpretations of these unique beings, often used to evoke contemplation and spiritual introspection. Second, in literature and theological discourse, the Ophanim are frequently discussed as symbols of divine mysteries and the incomprehensible nature of God's creation, prompting ongoing reflection on the nature of divine encounters and revelation. Opinions on this concept vary widely. Some theologians and scholars emphasize the Ophanim's role in enhancing understanding of divine omniscience and portray them as critical to grasping the biblical portrayal of God's power. Others, however, view the imagery as symbolic rather than literal, discussing its metaphorical significance rather than as a depiction of actual entities. One potential controversy stems from differing interpretations. Some question whether these beings are meant to be interpreted literally, as angelic hosts, or allegorically as symbolic representations. This divergence can lead to varied theological conclusions regarding the nature of angels and divine presence. The description and characteristics of the Ophanim not only serve as a cornerstone for understanding the broader vision of Ezekiel, but also intersect with other biblical themes, such as prophecy, divine communication, and the hierarchical structure of heavenly beings. By examining the Ophanim, one delves deeper into the complexities of divine symbolism and the rich tapestry of biblical imagery. The concept of symbolic significance of the wheels and eyes in the context of biblically accurate Ophanim, as depicted in Ezekiel 1:15-18, delves into a profound and mystical vision. The Ophanim, often understood as celestial beings or angelic forms, are described as interconnected wheels within wheels, filled with eyes. These elements hold deep symbolic meaning within biblical literature. The wheels represent divine mobility and the omnipresence of God's will, suggesting that His influence moves seamlessly and freely throughout the universe. The eyes symbolize divine omniscience, indicating that nothing escapes the sight of God and that all things are within His knowledge. This symbolism is crucial in understanding the portrayal of God's nature as transcendent and immanent. The wheels and eyes combine to illustrate a God who is all-seeing and all-powerful, yet intimately involved in the world. This imagery invites believers to consider the scope and reach of divine wisdom and judgment, offering comfort in the knowledge that God is ever-present and aware of human experience. In real-world applications, these symbols are often reflected in theological discussions and artistic interpretations. For instance, religious scholars might explore the concept of divine surveillance, interpreting the eyes as representative of ethical accountability, prompting believers to live righteously. Similarly, artists throughout history have endeavored to capture the mystery of the Ophanim, serving as a powerful visual reminder of their theological significance. Opinions about the symbolic significance of these entities vary. Some theologians view the wheels and eyes as metaphors, designed to convey complex divine attributes in a comprehensible way to humankind. Others interpret them more literally, as part of a greater angelic hierarchy that interacts with the world. Such diverse perspectives demonstrate both the richness and the ambiguity inherent in biblical exegesis. Controversies arise from different interpretations of these symbols. Some question their literal existence, seeing them as allegories, while others argue that these visions hold hidden messages yet to be fully understood. Critics might also debate the appropriateness of applying such ancient symbols to modern life and belief systems. The symbolic significance of the wheels and eyes informs and intersects with broader theological discussions on angelology, divine nature, and human responsibility under divine observation. It invites continued exploration into how biblical imagery shapes and reflects deeply held beliefs across different cultures and eras, influencing both individual spirituality and collective ecclesiastical traditions. In the study of biblically accurate Ophanim, described vividly in Ezekiel 1:15-18, a comparative analysis with other angelic beings offers a profound understanding of the diverse hierarchy and roles within celestial entities. Ophanim, often depicted as wheels with eyes, serve as mechanisms of divine movement and presence, differing markedly from other angelic beings like seraphim and cherubim. This analysis is significant because it provides insight into the varying functions and symbols embodied by angels, highlighting the unique way each conveys aspects of the divine order and purpose. For instance, Ophanim, characterized by their wheels full of eyes, symbolize the omniscient, all-seeing nature of God, emphasizing His ever-present observation and sovereign control. In contrast, seraphim, typically associated with fire and purification, focus on worship and the proclamation of God's holiness, as seen in Isaiah 6. Cherubim, often portrayed as guardians of sacred spaces like Eden, highlight protection and divine mystery. These distinctions help believers and scholars appreciate the multifaceted ways in which divine messages and attributes are delivered. Real-world applications of this understanding can be seen in art and literature, where artists like Gustave Doré have depicted these beings with intricate detail to capture their mystical essence and roles. Similarly, in theological studies and sermons, clergy may delve into these comparisons to enhance their teachings about divine order and angelic functions, providing congregants with a richer comprehension of biblical narratives. However, this comparative analysis does not come without challenges. Interpretations can vary widely, with some questioning the literal versus symbolic meanings of angelic depictions. Additionally, cultural and historical contexts might influence how these beings are understood, creating diverse perspectives within religious communities. Critics may argue that focusing too much on the distinct attributes and appearances could detract from the broader spiritual messages intended by these scriptures. Despite these challenges, exploring the differences and connections among angelic beings deepens our grasp of their significance in biblical texts. This comparison illuminates the interconnected nature of these celestial entities. By examining these roles and characteristics, we not only appreciate the rich tapestry of divine messengers, but also understand the broader theological themes they represent, influencing how we interpret sacred narratives and their implications for faith and spirituality.